Hello, this is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com, and today we're going to be talking about shooting from the prone position. Now, what a lot of people don't take into account is when you're coming from the standing to the prone position, one factor that needs to be very carefully looked at is your sling. If your sling is still in the tightest position, once you start dropping down, it could really tighten up even more and make it very difficult to shoot from that position. So the main thing we're going to be speaking about is how to get out of your sling and how to make sure to do it properly, so when you get into the prone position, you'll still be effective. So what we're going to be doing is, right now my gun is slung and very, very tight. So the first thing we're going to do, no matter what, is put the gun into safe, because once we start trying to wiggle around a little bit more, the gun could be pointed in an unsafe direction, and we want to make sure at the minimum that it's still in the safe position. So the gun is going to go into safe. I'm going to grab my sling and loosen it up to the furthest I'm able to get it. The next thing I'm doing is I'm going to swim out of my sling. So I'm going to make sure to get out of the sling to make sure that I'm fully clear of it. Once I'm here, the sling is only around my neck, so if I drop to the prone position, it'll be still much, much more comfortable. So now that I'm over here, the next thing I'm going to do is kind of put my hand towards the ground as if I'm giving the ground a high five. I'm going to touch the ground with my hand and then kick out my legs so that I don't make sure that I don't slam my knees against the ground. That's another thing that we see often, is that someone might slam their knee against the ground, and if you're in an area where it's concrete or if there's rocks, you can really hurt yourself. So having your hand out, touching the ground, and then kicking out with your legs will only make it that once you start settling down, it'll be on your stomach and not damage any other part of your body. So this has been dropping to the prone position. Now, another thing you want to take into account is when you get to the prone position, you still need to make sure that you have a proper setup with your rifle where you're able to see through the optic and what you're engaging. Because remember that since your optic is over your barrel, you need to make sure that compensation of where you're planning on, where you're aiming versus where you expect to be hitting is the same. And a lot of people, when they drop to the prone position, they're not able to really calculate what that is, which is why this is an important drill, is you need to be able to make sure to know your rifle to the fullest extent to make sure that you'll be able to be effective with it. So when you drop to the position in the prone, make sure that you know where you're aiming and where the bullet's going to be impacting, so it's going to be effective. Also remember, again, the big thing to take out of this is making sure that your gun is on safe, because if you start moving and wiggling around, if you hit something on the ground, it's very high likeliness that you're able to get an accidental discharge, which would obviously be very, very bad. So make sure you practice the sling, make sure you practice the safety, make sure you practice having your hand out first so that when you get to the prone position, you don't end up whacking any of your limbs, which would obviously be very painful. And make sure that you're doing this properly and slowly initially to make sure that over time you'll do it better. This is Raziel Cohen with ndftraining.com. Thank you for watching.